politicians have found that out yet and turned that webpage down yet, but it doesn't do well for reputations. And it's because of this very, very greedy industry. You now have the wonderful distinction of being the #1 youth use rate in the country. Now, of course, you can hear from folks saying, no, but marijuana use has gone down among kids. Great, well, how many schools did you look at for that? Well, we left out the 2nd and 3rd largest districts. Okay, well, what about the other? Well, we left out the 6th and 7th largest districts too. Oh, okay, so is it representative of the state? No, but it's going down. Well, folks, that doesn't tell us anything. What we do hear from, though, is the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, the only representative sample of drug use in the country for Colorado, the state sample. And that state sample puts Colorado at #1. It also, what about the 18 to 25-year-olds? So your brain does, 18 isn't the magic number in this game, folks. About 30 years old is, but 18 to 25, what's happening with our young people is they're competing with China and India and all the other countries for 21st century jobs. Are they ready? Nope. I hear you having a hard time filling construction jobs in this state because you can't find people to pass a drug test. So I don't see how this helps us. I mean, again, this isn't political. I don't see how this helps us make America great again by any means. I don't see how pot has ever done that for anybody. And we were fooled once by big tobacco. I don't want to be fooled again. I'm not going to go through all the data, but I do. Some things do kind of stick out for me. The fact that more Colorado youth on probation are testing positive for marijuana, more kids that are in trouble, the fact that marijuana offenses in high schools and elementary schools have gone up. Okay, so now you know you have more officers dealing with this at schools. Do you have more student assistant officers at school now with all the tax money that's raining down from the sky? Have you been able to hire more people to enforce the law, at least among young people? I didn't think so, but these offenses are going up. Even the New York Times admitted marijuana taxes won't save state budgets. We've seen this play out. You have a lottery here. Do you have a lottery here? Yeah. Oh, okay. So, is that helping your schools be #1 in the country at least? I mean, what's happening with that? We are promised these things over and over again. Chris Stifler saying in the Denver Post why pot taxes can't solve Colorado's budget problem. And look at our revenue and costs. Alcohol costs 10 times more than it brings in. Tobacco even more so. Now you're talking about a drug, marijuana, that combines some of the worst parts of tobacco, inhaling something, and the worst parts of alcohol, intoxication. Tobacco doesn't make you intoxicated, dirty little secret. You can drive a car and smoke a cigarette. You can go to work and smoke a cigarette. But THC actually messes with your mind. And so what are we doing in terms of the cost with that? The emergency room, I'm not, you all know this, but the emergency room admissions that have gone up in this state among very, very young kids, the black market that remains. In Oregon, 70% or more of the marijuana market in that state is illegal. That's what the leaked police report said, and then the state had to disavow. The state said, no, we don't know anything about that report. We actually had to file a public records request, which we're doing in this state as well. Because we can't get straight answers from government officials who have to defend their legacy. I hate to say it. Very well-meaning, nice people. But they have to defend a legacy. And it's in their lap and they want to make the best of it. I get it. But we have to keep them accountable. That's something that Justin with the Marijuana Accountability Coalition is going to be doing in the future. And I hope that you can connect with them. They'll be giving a workshop later on youth. So in legalized states, we're seeing workplace protections is now a new issue. They want to bring public use. You know this. They want to talk about, I mean, can you believe that we're actually debating public use again of a smoked drug? I thought we'd been there, done that. I thought we learned, but here we go. And then the other issue I love, it makes me so sad actually, but it's incredible to bring up, is the fact that the juvenile arrest rate before and after legalization is higher now than it was before. In fact, more kids of color are being arrested. So I don't see how this is helping with social justice, especially when I look at Denver and the census, and I see the broad Hispanic population here on the western side of the city, the African Americans smaller on the northern part of the city, northeast, and then you see the concentration of where the pot shops are. Of course they're going after the weakest in society. That's what you do when you're in a predatory industry. You know, folks, addiction is not only going up here in your brain and your DNA. Addiction is something that is formed by your environment as well. And the industries know that, And so that's why there are 8 times as many liquor stores in poor communities of color in this country than in upper class communities. That's why OxyContin and Purdue Pharma focused on poor rural whites of Kentucky and West Virginia in the late 2000s. They go after the folks who don't have the ready access to healthcare, housing, education, who don't have daddy to bail them out if something goes wrong, or the best lawyer in the state, who don't have the job waiting for them even if they test positive for a drug, who don't have access to $100,000 a year to go to Malibu and go to drug treatment if something happens to go wrong. And so when you're that addictive industry, you are absolutely focused on the weakest in society. They will be some of your best customers. And you start to look at the drug use rates among the vulnerable kids in this state under 25, and you will see the corresponding increases among the most vulnerable kids, among the LGBT youth, among young kids of color, and the poorest of any race as well. We need to wake up if we think this is about social justice, folks. This is about making guys that look like me and live where I live. I live in Manhattan. Rich. This is about Wall Street and Silicon Valley. This isn't about anything else. And I'm fine with not criminalizing young people. We don't want to criminalize young people or people that have a drug problem. We want to get them help, get them treatment, early intervention, mental health. We haven't even talked about comorbidity, mental health disorder, which we'll talk about later, but that's the stuff that scares me the most. The schizophrenia, psychosis, depression, anxiety. I mean, anxiety for anyone under 30 is already, I can't fathom how much is off the charts already versus my generation. And now you're going to add this to it. Obviously, the construction issue we talked about. I want to go forward because I want to have a few minutes for questions. Look, I get that you've legalized in the state. There are some things you can do to make a very bad situation a little bit better. And I know groups have focused on this: edibles and high THC concentrates. Why should the marijuana industry serve on a rulemaking body that determines how marijuana is sold and packaged and marketed? That one I can't figure out. Can you imagine if Philip Morris served on the board of the Tobacco Control Commission? Or if we allowed Purdue Pharma to help write our national prescription drug strategy? It makes zero sense that the people who are going to be regulated are the regulators. When I see journalist after journalist in this state, when I see marijuana regulator after marijuana regulator go into the industry, I get it, there's money there. But where are the prohibitions and some rules on that? I mean, in the Obama administration, I couldn't talk to anybody for 5 years that had anything to do with any program that I touched. Where are the stricter rules here? I know there are some rules, but not many. Advertising and promotion. Advertising? We don't have Joe Camel anymore. We don't have the Marlboro Man. I don't understand why and by the way, you say, well, they're not permitted. Well, why do I see the coupons everywhere? Why do you see signs everywhere? A science-based public awareness campaign like I talked about earlier, and then drugged driving. And if you think you're ever going to get to a 0.08 for like alcohol for marijuana, think again. Metabolizes in the body so much differently. It sticks in your fat, stays longer, affects people differently. But I think that if you're driving impaired, if you fail a behavioral test on the road, and if on an oral swab we can detect that you've used marijuana fairly recently, that should probably be good enough evidence that you shouldn't be on the road. Car crashes have increased in this state. They've doubled in Washington state as well, related to marijuana. At the very least, we need to put some protections in. Good intentions do not matter. Market dynamics in this issue matter. I don't care if you have the best prevention campaign in the world. In the industry, it's about market dynamics. And until we realize that, absolutely the pot industry will become another big tobacco. They're already writing the rules of regulation. We can reform our laws. Absolutely, kids with seizures should get whatever helps them. Absolutely, kids caught with marijuana should not be imprisoned. Absolutely, we shouldn't target young people of color. Fix those things. But you don't have to fix them by making the problem worse with rampant commercialization. The industry has its sights set on 2018 in multiple states around the country. We'll be working very hard. Michigan is going to be the next state with a ballot initiative in 2018. We're setting up an apparatus there. I do want to end with a quote by the world's foremost scientist on marijuana. Her and I had the privilege of being with Pope Francis recently to talk about this issue, which has been a pretty incredible experience at the Vatican. And one thing that she said at that meeting, which was also published, was an incredible thing, which is basically the effects of a drug, legal or illegal, on health are determined not only by its pharmacologic properties, not only by the way it affects your brain and body, but also by its availability and social acceptability. She said, in this respect, legal drugs like alcohol and tobacco offer a sobering perspective, accounting for the greatest burden of disease associated with drugs. Greatest burden, more than heroin, more than fentanyls, more than OxyContin, more than meth, more than crack. That means a lot. The greatest burden. Not because they are more dangerous than illegal drugs, not because when you have a beer, that's more dangerous than, using fentanyl, but because their legal status allows for more widespread exposure. That's what this is about, and it's about normalization and widespread exposure. That's why these young people to my right are dollar signs to this industry. Because if they can expand widespread exposure and normalization, they will get rich. So we obviously have a lot of work to do. I am excited by the various groups and people I see in this room. I absolutely think there is a pushback coming. I think that unfortunately we have to feel it before we sometimes have any action on it. I mean, how long did it take for us to realize smoking in restaurants wasn't a good idea? How long did it take for us to hear that, to realize that Philip Morris selling marijuana, although they're going to do that too, by the way, the tobacco industry colluding with marijuana. Don't think that they are, not looking at marijuana. In fact, the biggest marijuana industry group is partnering with the tobacco industry as we speak. So we have that little thing to look forward to. But how long did it take for us to realize that candy cigarettes weren't exactly aimed at adults? It will take some time, but I am confident we're going to realize that. We're going to need voices like yourselves out there. It's so hard not to be discouraged here. It's easy for me in a lot of the states that don't legalize, and they, by the way, they look at Colorado. I have to say one vignette. We were at the UN, okay, with the Netherlands. The Netherlands, what are they known for? Pot, right? 1976, they de facto legalized. We used to look at, they will tell you, we used to look at the Netherlands in the 2000s, when we were, in the 2000s, we would look at the Netherlands like, oh my God, those pothead Dutch people, what are they doing? And do they know what they're doing by legalizing marijuana? They're just, God, what are they thinking? Folks, it's embarrassing to go to international meetings now. Yeah. They look at us and say, Kevin, let's talk about Colorado. That's all they want to talk about, Colorado. I mean, they can't point out Colorado on a map, Doug, but they know what your reputation is. And they're like, wait a minute, Kevin, you guys were the ones saying we were kind of crazy for allowing coffee shops and allowing people 21 and over with no advertising to use a little marijuana here and there. You now have 99% THC that you're advertising for next to nothing in your newspaper that every kid under 18 is reading. Mm-hmm. You now have products that resemble candies. You now have all of this kid-friendly exposure. You have lobbyists, Kevin. They don't have lobbyists there. Industry. They can't believe what we're doing. In fact, do you know that they classify THC above 16% in the same way they classify crack cocaine in the Netherlands? What do you think they think when they see what you guys have to offer in the beautiful menus? It's an amazing change, turning of tables. And I gotta tell you, while we're having that discussion with the Netherlands, China, Japan, and South Korea and Singapore are cracking up. They're like, please, let us know how it goes. We'll check in with you in 20 years. We'll see how your young people are doing. They're ecstatic. They're trying to hold in their enthusiasm. Folks, we need to wake up. We're in a slumber by the industry that has bullied, pushed us down, kicked us while we're down, saying that we are the dinosaurs from the Stone Age who want to put everybody in prison, that we are outdated. Folks, we have the science on our side. We have the evidence clearly on our side. It will take some time for things to, I'm not saying the sky is falling now and this is it's a beautiful state. It's a beautiful place to be. I'm always in awe when I open those curtains in the hotel room and see those mountains. It's amazing. We're not saying the sky has fallen, but we're saying things are not looking too good, and we're really worried about what it's going to look like in 10 more years. Marijuana is a slow kill drug. That's what I talk about with people struggling with this. It's not heroin. It doesn't transform your life tomorrow, usually, although now with 99%, God knows. But generally, this is something that is over time with a kid. This is a 13-year-old who starts to use that, doesn't do as many extracurriculars